we got into the issue. Well, we found out that our website is not on the platform that it needs to be on to host such an animal. So now we're going to be looking at a website redesign. So
Which needs to happen anyway.
yeah. So anyway, but the bottom line is, can you pull that up? I was going to show you what Lisa did with the town of Huntersville, just to give you an idea of where we're going.
Good.
In terms of citizens being able to access a lot of this information from the convenience of their home. I don't know what's wrong with this. Maybe it's me. No? I don't know. So here's the town of Huntersville.
Gracious.
Let's see. Go to. So there's a project on Beatty's Ford Road on the outside of Huntersville. You click on that, then click on the link there, Natalie. So wait a minute. So this is a proposed land use for a 5,000 square foot wedding and banquet hall with 150 associated parking spaces. So that gives you an idea of what that project is. So envision being able to go online and looking at Waxhaw's projects that we have coming through our department. So click on the link.
At what point does it get added to the map? As soon as the application comes in?
At the application point. And then,
Fantastic.
so scroll down, keep going all the way to where it breaks. So right, okay, go up. So it's the second from the, yeah, so the second from the, so you can see all the information that you could get, the application, the site plan, the staff analysis, all the attachments, the floor plans, elevations, all the information that the staff would have would be accessible from the citizens from their home. So you could go online and figure out if you're driving by and wondering what a project is, you could look.
And even applicable portions of the ordinance.
Yes.
Put in there.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. All
right.
right.
Now, what I'm not seeing here is a schedule, like a meeting schedule.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Click on the SUP. To the left.
To the left.
To the left. Yeah,
That.
right there. And you scroll down a little bit. Scroll up. So that one was actually approved. It went to the planning board June 20th, the town board on July 20th. It was approved July 20th. So,
Very cool.
so in the future we'll be able to.
How long
now
have you
we've
been
got
here?
the little caveat is we have to rework our website because it's not on a platform that would support such a thing. So I had a conversation with Lisa Hoffman today about starting that process. So there's another project to add to the list.
Okay.
But anyway, that's where it kind of gets to John's comment at the last meeting about making sure information's out there for folks to access. So.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so we're excited about. Lisa set the bar high, so we expect great things from her here in Waxhaw that she did in Huntersville. Okay, we're going to do a Board of Commission new candidate orientation, and I'll be contacting, or staff will be contacting the various new Board of Commissioner candidates to do an orientation if they're interested in coming. We'll go over a number of different items: the council manager form of government, the town organizational structure, the town budget, our vision, mission, values, and our goals and objectives we'll cover. And then just to give folks an understanding of the obligation involved in terms of the meetings, the training, the time commitment, code of conduct, what all's involved with being being on the Board of Commissioners. And also rules regarding political signage. So that's around the corner.
Can we also go ahead and, because there's only a few candidates that are signed up, can we go ahead and provide them at least electronic copies of the agenda for all the upcoming as our meetings come up?
Sure.
So that they can,
Just email
go
the
ahead
agenda.
and
Sure.
act like understudies.
Okay, absolutely. We can do that.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Town Manager's Quarterly Finance Report. This will be the first one that I've done. This is not of the quality that I would hope. And we talked earlier a little bit about the town's financial system and some of the challenges we have with that, but we're kind of doing the best we can. It'll improve over time. But this will be for the fourth quarter of the fiscal year we just closed. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th, so we closed FY 14-15 on July 30th. So we have a full year's worth of data with one caveat. So we'll walk through this. So What we're going to look at, basically the bottom line from last year in terms of our revenues over or under expenditures. We'll look at our building permitting activity, property tax collections, sales tax collections, just a slide on the national economic outlook, something that's kind of interesting that we need to be thinking about, and then what all those numbers are telling us. So it's a pretty high level look here, and we can change this or amend this over time to meet your needs if you want different information. So looking at the general fund, that's the town's largest fund. That's where most of your financial activity is. The year's 100% complete, and this looks a little odd, but I'll explain it. We've received only 85% of our budgeted revenues. Well, what happens is we continue to receive revenues from the previous fiscal year all the way through the middle of August. So that number will improve over time, but that's where we are right now. We still get sales tax as an example. So that 85% will improve. And we've spent or encumbered 93% of our budgeted expenditures. So we came under budget by 7% on the expenditure side. And then when you just look at cleanly revenues over or under expenditures, to date we have spent about $516,000 more than we have received in revenue. However, again, that will change somewhat as we close out the fiscal year. And we won't have our audited numbers probably until October. We'll really know how we ended the year at that point. Yes, sir.
So our expenditures are complete?
Yes, our expenditure, that number will not change.
Okay.
The 93%, that's a good thank you. The 85% will change, the 93% will not change.
Okay, thank you.
But that just gives you, that's just a snapshot of where we were when I ran the report. Can y'all see this in the back? Nah, could you flip those lights a little bit? Okay. So building, I apologize for the color here. So building permit values, what you're looking, and this is an example where I've had some challenge getting historical data. I went back further than FY 13-14, but I didn't like the numbers I was seeing. I didn't trust some of what was in there. So, but I felt good about 13-14 and 14-15. So, if you look at the building permit, excuse me, the building permit values in FY 13-14, which was 2 years ago, we did almost $160 million in permitting for that year. That's a very strong number for a town our size. And again, most of that was single-family residential development. Now, some of that, obviously, it tapered off in this past fiscal year to just under $100 million in permitted value. And one of the things that the building inspections folks have told me is that developers ran out of lots. Right. But now they're ramping back up again. We all know about what's getting ready to happen in Millbridge. So we're going to see we're anticipating another pretty large wave of development coming forward on the single family side. So but this is all development. This is commercial, which we haven't had much of, and single family. Annual property tax revenue, this is a pretty amazing screen. Most of the country was still in the recession, up until a couple of years ago, really. But Waxhaw's property tax revenue continued to increase due to the development it was seeing. Again, mostly single family residential. So you have seen really strong numbers through the end of the recession in terms of property tax base growth, and we continue to see strong numbers today. Sales tax comparison, we're lacking 1 month, so this is July through May. Again, strong retail sales in Union County, and really this also reflects to some degree across the state the way they do their formula. But strong growth, strong recovery in the retail side of things in terms of sales tax revenue that generates. So again, I would like to have about 5 years of historical data. I can't get it out of the financial system right now. We're working on it, but so over time I hope to be giving you a better view of this, looking back 5 years versus just 2. Okay, this is kind of a national look on what's going on. So these are pink or red bars are the recessions that we've had for the most part since 1969. So if you look at and then the green are the months of expansion. So the red also represents the time it took to recover to the previous high. Does that make sense? So let's look at obviously this last one. We had the early recession, the recession in 2001 lasted 33 months. We had 50 months of recovery coming out of that. And then the recession hit, and it took 68 months to recover to the point we were before we went into the recession, which we have. So this says it took us between January of '08 and December of '13 to recover, which is the longest. The interesting thing about this, the recovery took longer than the last recession. That tells you to the degree that somebody, these aren't my words, the lie upon which the last recovery was, or the last expansion was based on. So that was the first time in this history that the recovery took longer than the previous expansion. So, and I say that to just keep this in mind as we start talking about economic development for the board. We're in an expansion cycle right now. That's the bottom. Expansion cycles don't last forever. Recessions come back around. So what are so just keep that in thought in mind. So overall, what are these numbers that I just went over telling us? Well, obviously we saw a pretty strong tapering off of residential construction between FY13-14 and 14-15. However, Waxhaw was still in a housing growth mode, and over 95% of that growth is single-family residential, and that gets to the point of needing to, or the discussion we're going to have about diversifying our tax base. So with that last slide I showed you on the recessions, well, let me get to the last one. So we're 20 months into an economic recovery, 21 months in. The last recovery lasted, or last expansion lasted 50 months before the Great Recession occurred. So, for you know, a case, who knows when the next recession will hit, but a case could be made that we're close to halfway through this expansion, which gives us, 2.5 years. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out, who knows, but based on the last cycle we went through. Again, my point there is expansions don't last forever. We're doing a lot of work with the comp plan, trying to get to the UDO to get that cleaned up. We hear a lot of complaints about the business community about how hard it is to do business in Waxhaw due to the UDO. Gary Summerfield's always the example I use. He came very close just to pulling the plug on his due to the difficulty he had in his project. There's a level of urgency here in terms of getting this addressed so we can work on an economic strategy that hopefully will diversify the town's property tax base to some degree. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, wake up, right? Okay, any questions for Warren on that? Very good, thank you so much.
You want that?
What?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, no questions for Warren? Okay, moving on to old business. I'm going to start by recognizing our attorney, Chaplain Spencer, you're going to talk to Commissioner Warner, right?
Yes.
Okay. Housekeeping.
Housekeeping. One of these matters is a quasi-judicial, as y'all have heard us talk about and probably tired of us talking about the limitations. And that, for a decision maker, he needs to have reviewed the record, but we have two other zoning matters, and they're legislative. They don't have the same time, evidentiary restrictions, but I just wanted to confirm, Commissioner Warner, did you review the video from the last meeting, that being July 14th, 2018, with these three, 2015, with these three zoning applications?
Yeah, yes, I reviewed the video, the entire 3 hours plus whatever it was.
I know, the entire video. Thank you, and therefore you are qualified. You're already qualified on the legislative, but I think that the people would like to know on the others that you did see all of their comments, and I just wanted to put that in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaplain. Okay, so let's begin. Item number 1. Consideration and possible action on petition CD-002516-2014. This is the request by James Deal for a conditional rezoning map amendment from CUOIS, Conditional Use Office Institutional and Specialty, to CDC2, Conditional District Highway Commercial, on approximately 12 acres of a 33-acre parcel, tax parcel ID number 06-165-003, located on the east side of Highway 16, south of 12 Mile Creek. The petitioner is proposing to develop 3 buildings. Building 1 would contain an event hall. Building 2 will contain a full-service restaurant, catering hall, and art gallery. Building 3 will contain a management, sales office, storage, restrooms, and a bridal staging multi-purpose room. We did have this public hearing at our last meeting on July 14th, and so now we are at the point of discussion and decision. So, gentlemen, what do we want to do here? Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve it. I think it's a unique opportunity for the town to put our place on the map, that we are an arts community, and that we are open and we're a natural community.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Do we have discussion on the motion?
I'd like to make a statement.
Commissioner Warner?
I know I was on the planning board for back in the 90s, and this particular site and proposal came back in 99, was it when you first submitted it, something like that?
Oh, okay.
And it's not that much different. It's just been improved, and I'm all for it.
Okay, very good.
I just wanted to point out one item.
Yes.
Housekeeping. With the motion you made, we need to make sure that the conditions that, or those conditions or any conditions that you might have are included.
Would you care to amend your motion?
Yes, I'll
To
do
include
the
the stated
statement of
conditions?
reasonable and consensus
Okay,
as is on the screen.
okay.
Want it separate?
Yeah, but you're talking about the conditions on the plan. Did staff have any other recommendations? And that was y'all had 2 additional.
Those were the two conditions.
So if you wanted to approve, you'd approve in accordance with all the conditions in the plan and the 2 staff recommendations that are
Yes.
listed. Okay.
So that is included in your motion?
I know it's
okay?
too technical.
Right, okay. So the motion now is to approve with the conditions as contained in the documentation and the staff recommendations. Right? Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? If there's not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is unanimous.
Reasonableness, consistency.
Yes, now we need the motion on the statement of reasonableness and consistency as projected on the screen here.
I'll make that motion that what's projected on the screen we accept.
Okay? So we have a motion. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion is again unanimous. Thank you very much. And congratulations. Next item, consideration and possible action on petition CU-003337-2015. Request by the applicant Aston Properties, Inc. on behalf of Cuthbertson Road 1 LLC for an amendment to the CUP conditional use permit for the shops at Howard's Mill to allow an automobile repair shop and automobile service station use. The property owner is requesting to add the uses to their approved table of uses in order to develop the property located at 2524 Cuthbertson Road, tax parcel 06-162-022. And again, this was the subject of a public hearing at our last meeting on July 14th, 2015. And the item that has just been passed to the board is the response by the applicant related to the request for environmental information. And it doesn't really address the site in particular. I thought I had asked for some clarification on this.
You asked for the,
Do you have that?
you asked if there was any environmental matters pertaining to the proposed store, the NTB, and they had an email, but the email had other verbiage, and this was very short and concise, so we wanted to present it in front of the public. And basically, it's a clean environmental outlook. They also did environmental searches and did not find any non-compliant issues. So it's pretty clean that there's a clean environmental, and if it would have been otherwise, I actually would have had to do a motion to reopen the public hearing for that limited purpose, but this is just clarification that they have a clean environmental record, that they have a recycling program, and that their impact is generally low.
Okay. Commissioner Hunt?
No, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were.
Do you have anything else?
Okay, so, so yes, now we are at the point of discussion and decision, so who would like to go first?
I would like to make a motion.
Commissioner Hunt?
I make a motion that this board not further process or consider this application. This will be based upon primarily that the developer voluntarily limited its uses back in the original agreement. They've benefited from the CUP for multiple years, and there's no legal right to the change. I would also, again, like to specify that automobile repair shop was specifically struck and agreed upon by the applicant then, and the board accepted, and I don't believe it's wanted today either.
So, motion to deny?
Yes, ma'am. Well, no, ma'am.
It's,
No, ma'am. I make a motion, we just do not consider the process of the application any further.
Okay.
it has the same effect
Okay.
legally, but
Okay,
per his motion,
understood.
they're not further processing.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is unanimous. Okay, next item. Consideration and possible action on petition CD-002959-2014, request by Michaud Resource Management LLC on behalf of Francis H. Presley, Clyde D. Presley, Shirley Jean Davis, and Jerry G. Davis for a conditional rezoning map amendment from R1 Single Family to CDC3 General Commercial on approximately 5.1 acres, tax parcel ID number 06-162-002, located on the west side of Highway 16, just north of the intersection of Highway 16 and Kensington Road. The petitioner is proposing a commercial development for the site, which will include a convenience store with associated car wash, an automotive repair facility, and a retail building. The applicant is also requesting a major variation for the vacuum canopy per the Town of Waxhaw Unified Development Ordinance Section 20.6.3 to permit both steel columns and a red roof for the vacuum canopy. Now, Chaplain, we have received further communication from the applicant, and there is a letter at your places from the representative of the applicant, Mr. Ross. Would it be appropriate to have them approach and address the?
Yes, if the board would like to hear from them, that is certainly your prerogative. You do have a letter, and they can further explain and comment as this is legislative.
Unless I see some objection, then I'll invite the Mr. Ross from the applicant's team to catch us up. Good evening, sir. Oh, let's get you the microphone. Sorry.
There we go.
We do have some folks watching at home with our new, system, camera system, so try and speak into the mic.
Thank you. John Ross, Eagle Engineering, 2013A, Van Buren Avenue, Indian Trail, North Carolina. Also with me tonight is the applicant, Mr. Ingram Walters, and he could answer any specific questions toward the applicant. I'm sure he would be glad to do so. We did provide, and you have, I see, copies of a letter that I wrote in conjunction with the applicant, some matters of clarification, and we're certainly here to answer any technical questions that you may have specific to that. I will point out, I believe the request for the major variance has actually been withdrawn, that there is no desire at this point for the color, the red color that was presented once before, but rather at the previous meeting, samples of a more muted tan or beige color were shown. So that request is noted in this letter, as well as for the fuel canopy. We heard a concern from the public in our previous meeting about more of a branding associated with that fuel canopy. So we've requested that that be stricken, and that we would be providing a more neutral color for that canopy as well. What you see in this letter, and we heard some folks speaking earlier about what is right and what is fair, and we certainly contend that everything that we have done has been specific to the letter of the law. I know this is not a public hearing format, but we have, in conjunction with the UDO that you have in place, presented everything, every step of the way, been through 3 cycles of review. The applicant has spent a sizable sum of money with a number of potential end users to get architectural renderings for each of these individual buildings. So we feel like every effort has been made in the last year and 3 months to get us to the process where we are this evening. And we thank you for hearing this case. And if there's anything more that we can add, we're certainly here to clarify anything that we can.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Ross? Gentlemen? Yeah, Commissioner Stewart. Speak in the mic, please.
All right, y'all hear me? We good? All right. Sorry, I've been a little under the weather. So we've had some further discussions along with Ingram and the engineers. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I hear you. Can you hear me now? You don't have to shake your head.
There you
It's
go.
not being rude. Okay? All right, so we've had further discussions with the developer and the engineers, and they've been open to changing the plan. That raised a lot of other questions, some of which we don't have the answers to right now. Part of what they've been agreeable to in discussions is to remove the use of the automotive shop, for starters, and to talk about aesthetics and those things which you've already somewhat agreed to now. That being said, there are a lot of questions that have left to be answered. So if they'd like to speak to some of what they said they would agree to, I'd like to see if you guys could, whichever one of you'd like to.
Evening, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing me out. It
Just
just
give us
seemed,
your name for the record. sir.
Ingram Walters, 100 Harley Street, Monroe, North Carolina. It just seemed to me there was so much opposition the other night to the automotive use. You know, I know people here that are in the automotive business. I consider them friends of mine. Or before this, we were good friends anyway. And so, you know, I just felt so much opposition to the automotive thing that I was like, do we have room? I know, you know, they're saying, some people came up to me after the meeting, do we have room for a restaurant? Could we do a restaurant? And there's some concern that I might not have room for a restaurant, but I have a detention pond on here that takes up a lot of parking spaces, that there's a huge church coming behind us, Forest Hills Church, and if we could work with that church and I could give them access through this property and they could take the detention pond, that would give us room for a restaurant. I want to make this deal work. I want to make it work for me primarily, but I want to make it work for the sellers of the property. It's been in their family since 1910, and they've been paying property taxes on it for a long time, and they've been trying to sell it since about 2002. And so I'm open to agreeing to not put automotive use there. I mean, that came from smarter people than me saying this thing is shaped like this, and it'd be perfect used for automotive, and it'll fit fine, and it passed the planning board approval 5-0, but you know, I hear so much opposition to it here that I'm willing to change that if the board can do that, if that carries muster, and just make it retail restaurant there. And I think it would work good with the church that's going behind it, and willing to do whatever I need to do architecturally with those buildings to make it blend in. And I'd just like to make it work, you know. There's nobody in this room that can stand on that property and think they'd like to build their house there. You know, it's not realistic. So it's in the future land use plan to be zoned commercial. If you go out and stand on that property, you'll understand that it needs to be zoned commercial, and I'm willing to work with you guys to do something that is something other than automotive, because I think that's driving a lot of the opposition, and it would look better if you could do something besides a big automotive building with a large wall, and so I'm certainly open to that. I don't know what the restaurant retail use would be right now, But, you know, I'm certainly willing, with y'all's approval, to change that to restaurant retail use.
And as we spoke about, you are open to changing the aesthetic, the architectural look of the overall project to be more suited to the location.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'd like to work with that church behind us, because I know that they were, you know, part of a master plan of Curitan, and when they first came back there, they came and said, and told us, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but they told us, hey, we'll work with you, because I don't know if the whole town knows, but to do this project, we have to do $550,000 worth of road improvements out front. There's actually going to be 2 turn lanes going across to the McDonald's instead of 1 left-hand turn. Okay, and we're having to pay for all that. When the church came, they said, we'd be happy to help you with the road improvements. We're going to bring a lot of congestion to the area. And I told them we could work out a deal and they could have access through the property. And it wouldn't just jam up that stoplight there at the Walgreen, because they could come on up and use the leftovers through this property to get to the church parking lot. But then all of a sudden they went quiet and said, well, we're part of this development here, and we don't have to do any road improvements, and we don't have to do detention. But then they've turned in plans to the town showing access right through my property. Well, I wouldn't think that would be part of the original plan of Curitan to come through that property. So they use that to that advantage when they have to, and then.
So you've got some negotiating.
Yeah, I think we could negotiate that out with them. And I think a restaurant, they'd be happier with a restaurant there, and the restaurant will be happy with a huge church there, and I think it could work for everybody, so.
Okay. So, so to me, it sounds like where we are is that that there need to be some significant changes to what you originally brought us. And, you know, aesthetically, because you're talking about the changed uses and so forth. So, Chaplain, what do we do at this stage of the process? If they're willing to work with us and we're willing to work with them, how do we manage that?
I would recommend you defer. One thing, I'm looking at the planners that are looking at me, they need to look at configurations, setbacks, because either those are less intense use, and I saw people nodding at a restaurant. It's not a huge change, but it's a change, and it's part of the zoning process, but they would need to go back and look and see how this fits. You've got different parking requirements, you have different setbacks. Seems to be what the people want, but they need to look and make sure it can work. And also, you're talking about additional aesthetic conditions. Well, with this being conditional zoning, what the planners and I try to do is make sure that we have those in there, in the plan. So we would want more time to make sure everything's just kind of see a new design, see how it works, make sure it's going to be in compliance. It sounds like some of this is dependent upon some other issues, so you would need some time to go. But if you think this is a workable plan, the board going this direction, then I think you do need to defer it, and I would ask the applicant how long they think it would take. The only thing on the time horizon I see is this board can't make a decision after the election, but before the new board gets seated. But then after that, you can, because it's conditional zoning. There's that one window, but that's November. So if you brought it back before then, and I don't know what type of plans are your engineers' time frame.
Yeah, so let's be clear. They would like to work with us to adjust the plan. The reality is there's over 200 uses in the UDO. So it's going to take a while to decipher for C3 zoning. It's going to take a while to decipher what would be applicable there. I do know that we have some further traffic questions that we've done some digging through the town manager as it pertains to your proposed change. In addition to that, I maybe I'll just state it this way. We're about to impact Kensington Drive, which was designed not as a vehicle thoroughfare. impacts the development across the way, we need to really understand what the impact is on Kensington as well. Because as a board, we approved, or we denied the request to put parking in the Harris Teeter area and said development right up front. That, by design, says that is not a vehicle thoroughfare, that is a connector road. And so if we're going to change this, then we got to go back. There's a ripple effect here. So there's a lot of moving parts. I don't have a good idea as to how much time it takes. I'm not smart enough to know how much time it takes to pull all that together. But it's traffic, it's both Cuthbertson and Kensington, it's the appropriate use, and I think it's terrific that you're willing to work with us on that. It's the church. Who makes the recommendation on how much time?
Counselor, is there any way that if we'd agree tonight to eliminate the automotive use, that we could vote on it like that? Go on and vote on it tonight?
Sure you want to do that?
I don't,
There would
these
be a-
people have been trying to sell this since 2002, no,
The board could, they just wouldn't know, the board could vote on it, they just wouldn't have the final configuration of the plan, and usually you adopt a plan, and the plan shows where everything's going to be. And
That's the
I don't know
whole
what
point of the
enhanced
initial
aesthetics are either. I just, you could ask for the vote, but you're not going to have all the conditions that you may desire to later.
Well, staff hasn't even appropriately reviewed those plans.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that a restaurant would fit.
Right.
Mr. Ross says 60 to 90 days is what he thinks.
If I may, what we would like to do is just allow sufficient time. This will be a bit of an iterative process, working with planning staff and working with future users, end users. So I would like to commit that we would target 90 days, recognizing if we get toward the election day and we're not quite where we need to be, we may have to readdress that at that point. But certainly we'll move efficiently and effectively as we can in the process.
60 to 90 days, you said?
Puts it before.
Yeah.
I believe 90 days would be the end of October.
Yeah, that's good.
End of November, actually.
August, September, October.
Would make it in
Yeah, that
before
would
the
put it-
deadline?
Yeah, that would be end of October. 90 would,
Second October meeting.
yeah. So,
But you could consider it the second meeting in October.
so, if we deferred this to the second meeting in October, that would, meet the criteria.
Yes, and if
Right, and
Commissioner
just
Stewart.
understanding how things work, sometimes, would it be possible to request maybe an earlier date in the event that we hit a speed bump and just, Lord forbid, it goes to the next meeting? Because if that happened at the last meeting, then we would
Right.
cross the line, and I don't want to see it
Well-
crossing lines. That's
What if
60
we
days?
said up to 90 days and they can bring it back whenever they're ready?
you guys okay with
Would that work?
yes,
Will we still
Commissioner
have to have a public hearing first and then a decision the second meeting, like we normally do?
I would certainly recommend that we continue, that we engage that process.
Well,
'Cause,
there's a month.
we certainly have a lot of the public here that are keenly interested. So,
Yeah, you could, this board could reopen the public hearing, or you could do another public hearing notice, and you could advertise even to reopen it if you,
I think it'd be cleaner to have a second public hearing
you'd have plenty of
that would, be separately noticed and everything. So you want to say, target the first meeting in October to have your materials back to us? What is the meeting date in October? 13th. October 13th?
Yes.
And then, public hearing then and decision at the second meeting in October? Does that sound
Yes,
like
I
a
think that would
timeframe that'll work for
be
you?
very fair. Thank you for that.
So, gentlemen, is that, is the board, is that what you all would like to do? Because, we can make a decision on this tonight, or we can make a decision to defer. It's up to you.
Do you need
I'd
a
like to
motion?
make a motion to defer it until the first meeting in October.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to defer the case to the first October meeting, which is October 13th.
Unless y'all get done sooner, in which case you could request to be on the agenda sooner, correct? All right, well,
Okay.
that was kind of a question. Can we do that?
For staff to, publicly notice the hearing.
Okay, and, you know, could you amend your motion to also instruct staff to properly call a second public hearing for that October date or whenever it gets scheduled?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have discussion on the motion? Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
Yes.
We don't need a second.
We would need to notify the media 10 to 25 days prior to the public hearing.
Okay, we've got, October
October 13th.
13th,
But if the chance that they decided to come back
earlier.
It would have to.
They're gonna have to
it
go
would
through
have
you.
It would have to hit that notice, proper notification period.
And if there's not a complete application, then y'all won't forward it on. It'll be.
Right.
You're
So
still
we
gonna
still have to
that.
follow all the
Does that make
those
sense?
processes.
They've gotta have a
Yes,
complete.
I just wanted them to realize that the drop dead deadline for them is not October, it's gonna be much earlier. to
Right.
get the staff for review and for public notice.
Okay. Commissioner Hunt?
So, understanding that there's a process, understanding that we've heard from the citizens in this process and their beliefs and what, I believe I haven't heard that they're opposed to commercial development. I believe that they mainly were opposed to the fact that they were not involved in this process. I think that we're offering this out to you as not as a no answer tonight, but you're stated you're willing to work with us, and us being, this board, but us being the community of Waxhaw, I would strongly advise you to do such in the next couple of weeks, months leading up to when your due date is here, and to bring back a plan that the community, that us, are looking for.
You'll know you have a win if you have some of these folks standing up in support of your project when you bring it back. All right? Okay, so we have a motion to defer on the table. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If there's not, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that was unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. You've got some work to do.
Yeah, real quick though, there has been some information that they've gotten, town staff and town managers gotten recently, that you guys, it's not for you. Just want to check with them, they've got some stuff.
Yes. Dennis Patrick, the gentleman in the black hair, blue shirt, all the way against the back. On the right-hand side,
Lean against the cabinets.
We have not recessed this meeting.
coordinating a lot of it.
She'll take
Not
it. She'll take
recessed
it.
this meeting, have we?
Thank you for that.
The meeting, the noise.
Okay, folks, if you are going to leave, if you could leave quietly, we've got one more item of business that the board needs to engage. So just to kind of keep it down a little bit, thanks. Okay, so consideration and possible action on committee reorganization and rules for committee members. Chaplain.
Wait a few minutes.
It-
I'll just talk loud.
Yeah.
You've got a memo before you, and
Well, the highway stuff.
I know, I have a loud one, don't I? I was trying to talk loud. This is just a guide for you to use because we're trying to come up with a plan. You have 8 existing boards and committees.
Yeah.
Can we take a recess, just 5 minutes?
Oh, okay.
That was still-
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Come back at, yeah, 7:50. Come back at 8 o'clock, right?
Let's just take a report, Chaplain.
I was using my deep voice too.
You were.
There's no doubt about that site's going C, one is going sometime. It's eventually gonna be commercial. And to make these people completely happy, they don't want it to be commercial.
And, what we found though, Jim, is This is kind of interesting, because I was going on Mountain Orange yesterday.